Thank you all for coming out tonight. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know if we needed a PA or not. Just to let you, we invited all three judicial candidates. Ms. Bronhard didn't make it. Basically, I'm going to ask questions, and the candidates will have 2 minutes to respond, 2 minutes each. And then overall, then we're going to take a break after asking them the questions, and then we're going to set up for the school board and do the same sort of thing. And I just wanted to give a brief preface to the county, what a county judge does. Basically, county court judges have jurisdiction over misdemeanor criminal offenses, criminal and civil traffic offenses, municipal and county ordinance violations, small claims, civil suits for less than $30,000 or $15,000 if filed before December 31st, 2019, homeowners association disputes, landlord-tenant disputes, simplified uncontested divorces, and also, basically, the judicial code of conduct prohibits a judge or judicial candidate from making public statements about issues that may appear before them, which is not good for forums, but basically they can't comment on litigation or how they might rule. So it's going to limit some of our questions. But the first question is the easy one. Please introduce yourself, and going in alphabetical order, we'll start with Mr. Evans.
Just to let you know, he's asked us to remain seated. We normally function standing up when we're arguing for a jury. But I'm Eddie Evans. I'm from Sopchoppy. I was born and raised there, and I went to law school. Went to high school here at Wakulla High, and then went to law school at FSU. In my, I guess it'd be second year, or the summer year of law school, I interned at the state attorney's office here in Wakulla. At the time, they had us running between, the intern ran between here and Franklin County. So because it was a smaller amount of cases, so we could get experience by handling cases in Wakulla and also going down to Franklin County to do it. I dealt with primarily misdemeanor cases at that time. And whenever I graduated from law school and got hired with the state attorney's office, I started off in county court in Leon County and was there for a year, a little over a year, and then came back here to Wakulla to handle all the misdemeanors both here in Wakulla and Franklin County. So I handled traffic court and misdemeanor court in both counties for probably about a year and a half. Then our dockets got big enough. I became permanent here in Wakulla. Then after handling county court there for a while, I was moved over to Gadsden County, which did felonies over there for about a year. And then our lead prosecutor here in Wakulla moved on, and because at the time we were doing about a 2-year rotation in Wakulla and Franklin, or mainly Wakulla, had about a 2-year rotation with the lead prosecutor being in. So I rotated in, was here about a year and a half, actually about 2.5 years, I guess, before it was over with, 96 through 98, and then was transferred back to Tallahassee. When I was here, I was the head of the Wakulla office and handled all types of cases there.
That's your time?
Okay.
Mr. Miller.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Miller, and I am currently the chief prosecutor here in Wakulla County. It's a position I've held since 2016. I was promoted to that spot. I'm actually from Tallahassee, Florida. That's where I was born and grew up at, but my family is from Sopchoppy as well. My mother was Janice Brown, and she was related to Evan Brown, who just passed away, but he was one of my father's, or grandfather's, brothers rather. Even though I didn't grow up in Wakulla County, that I've chosen to live in Wakulla County along with my wife, Kelly Langston, who's seated over there today right now. We have a 3-year-old daughter together that she'll be the 7th generation to live here in Wakulla County. So we care very deeply about where we live at and where our future in this county is going to be, especially as we continue to grow. I went to Florida State University, both for undergraduate and for law school. I graduated in the top 10% of my class, magna cum laude, and was elected to Order of the Coif, which is an honor reserved for the top 10% of law school students. Shortly after graduating law school, I was promoted to being the chief of misdemeanor in Leon County, supervising 5 county court divisions up there. After about a year or so being the supervisor of those 5 divisions, I was in a domestic violence prosecutor for a year in Leon County, where 3/4 of my caseload dealt with mostly domestic violence. After that, I spent 8 months here in Wakulla County as the second felony prosecutor before going back to Leon County to be the second in charge of a division for one of the felony divisions, and then being promoted back up here again, or back down here again rather, in 2016 to be your chief prosecutor. So I deal with all the cases that happen here in Wakulla County every single day, ranging from the drug offenses we have and property crimes that go along with that, all the way through sexual offenses and first-degree murders. So I deal with all of that happens in our county every single day. I'm very connected to what happens in this county on a day-to-day basis and care very deeply, as I said, about where we're going in our future, since this is the place that my wife and I have chosen to raise our daughter. So thank y'all very much for coming tonight. Thank you to Bill and Rachel for asking us questions. I can't wait to hear what y'all have to say. So thank y'all very much.
Okay.
3 seconds just back.
All right.
Basically, you've talked about your past experience. Can you tell us about your qualifications to be judge? I know that you have to, in the old days, you didn't even have to be a lawyer to be the county judge, but you now do. But can you talk about your qualifications, and we'll start alternate with you?
Sure. So I've been an attorney since 2012 is when I was actually passed the bar and became an attorney, so almost 10 years now. And I actually started off not in the state attorney's office, but my first year of law school, I was an intern at the public defender's office in Nassau County, Florida. So I've seen both sides, not just the state side, but I've also seen the defense side. And then my summer of my second year of law school, I started an internship with the state attorney's office in Leon County and have stayed there ever since. I was hired before I actually graduated law school and did a full-time job as an ASA, as a prosecutor, while going to law school at night to finish up. So during that time period, for the last 10 years, I've tried almost 100 cases. Over half of them are felonies, the other half being the misdemeanors, which a county court has jurisdiction over. I've tried 35 or 40 in that range of misdemeanors and traffic offenses, including things like DUIs. So I've got trial experience to do all that. At the same time, I've prosecuted thousands of cases in that same time period. Only a small fraction of our cases actually go to trial. Separately from that, though, one of the things I'm most proud of, and I've actually got 2 ladies from the Department of Health here tonight, Donna and Tanya, that are here. I did juvenile cases for quite a while too. Recently, a decision was made to handle all juvenile cases in circuit court, but before that, I worked very hard to bring in not just Department of Juvenile Justice, but also our health department and our school board. I'm very proud of too, bringing the superintendent of the schools in to juvenile court so we could all get our kids kind of back on the right track. And so instead of just having the criminal side of that, we brought in the health department to provide a program. They actually created one called Anchor that's helped I don't know how many kids at this point not reoffend. We bring the schools in so we can see how the kids are actually doing in school as well. So I try as much as I possibly can as a prosecutor to balance out holding somebody accountable for what they've done, so some degree of punishment, while at the same time providing a path for rehabilitation so they can rejoin all of us and not reoffend and not come back to criminal court. So I believe that the county court position, above all the other judge positions, is really a judge for and of the people. It's the people's court. You're dealing with stuff that affects a lot of people in this county on a very basic level. So I believe you should have a judge who's connected to you in that kind of way as well.
Okay. Mr. Evans, qualifications?
Well, I currently serve as general counsel to the state attorney in the state attorney's office. It basically means I'm sort of the lawyer for the office. And I also advise our younger lawyers, and which includes our division chiefs on down. So basically, my office is right next to the state attorney's office. State attorney. He was actually my summer intern back whenever he was in law school. So I've been there with the state attorney's office for 30 years. I also, in my position, I've also dealt with in the civil side as well, just like the county court judge here would do in civil cases. So I've had experience in those, handling those type cases, because most people don't realize, but the state attorney's office does handle certain legal cases that originate in civil court, such as sexually violent creditor cases, Baker Act cases, bond cases, which involve the state floating bonds to build roads and buildings and stuff such as that, and public records. So I have experience both in the civil and the criminal side. From the criminal side, from the lowliest misdemeanor, hunting out a season, all the way to the point of the death penalty. I'm the person in the office who deals with the death penalty cases. I currently manage all the defendants we have on death row. I'm actually one of the few, actually the only prosecutor in the office who's actually dealt with a carrying out of death warrant. And it's actually, we I've handled 2 of those over the years. So from the highest to the lowest type cases, I've got the experience of doing that. If any, like this morning started at 7:30 this morning, I got a call from one of our prosecutors, our second in command in one of our felony divisions, on a murder case. He needed some advice on closing arguments and on what the law was and dealing with it and making jury instructions requests. Did a resentencing today, sentenced a guy who committed an offense as a juvenile a number of years ago. Time's up? Okay.
Okay. Mr. Evans, this question will be, start with you.
Okay.
Why do you want to be county judge?
I want to be county judge because I think it is a position to be able to serve people in this community. And it would also help me use the experience that I've gained over the years in order to do that. You know, because you deal with all types of cases, landlord tenant, small civil cases, criminal cases, and being able to deal with criminal cases, the more experience you have, you know, at 25, 35, 45, 55 years old, just think of, you have a whole lot more experience, life experience at 55. That better enables you to, and the experience of dealing with cases helps you be able to identify the people who, and what type of services they may need, what type of sentences you may need to impose to ensure you don't see them again and criminal justice doesn't see them again. Or to determine what's the appropriate disposition in a civil case. So I think the more life experience you have, as well as professional experience you have, would put me in a better position to make those decisions. Simply because what the life experience is something you can't get except by living and doing. And that, I think, is a big portion where a county judge can make a big difference and where I would like to make a big difference.
Okay. Mr. Miller, why would you like to be, why are you running for county judge?
As we all know, Wakulla County is growing. We've had a lot of people move here recently, and I'm one of them. I mean, I came down here and moved here in 2017. So even though my family's been here for a very long time, my wife's family has been too. She grew up here and she went to Wakulla High School as well. We're growing. We have a lot of new people that have moved here as well, and I can represent all of us. As I said, my family's from here, from South Choppy initially, so I'm deeply rooted to our past. As I said, our daughter's the 7th generation to live here, so I care very deeply about where our county's come from and the people that have been here for a very long time. I'm also very involved in our present. As I said, I prosecute the cases that we deal with every single day in this county. So every single day when something happens, I'm the one reviewing warrants for the sheriff's office. I'm the one that's out there talking to people and meeting with the people that have been victims of crimes. I'm the one trying to make sure that everyone's rights are respected, not just victims, but also defendants, so that everyone is held accountable and everyone follows the law. So I'm deeply committed to what's happening right now in our present. And I'm also deeply committed to our future. As I said, my daughter is going to be raised here. She's 3 right now, but we are not going anywhere else. This is where my wife and I have chosen to make our home and to raise our family in. I care very much about what happens to this county going forward, and I believe you should have a judge that will grow along with your county. I'm 40 years old, so even though I've got over a decade of experience at this point in time and tried all kinds of cases, ranging the entire gamut of what I was as a judge, being 40 means I can serve you for quite a long time too. So as our county grows and develops, I can grow and develop right along with everybody else and serve you well into the future. So that's what I would like to do.
Okay. Good. Next question, Mr. Miller, you can start. What did you say is your judicial philosophy?
Can you repeat the question?
What is your judicial philosophy?
Okay.
Can you speak up, because none of us can hear you back here
Maybe
at all.
start using
Okay.
the.
Microphone. I can start doing that too. Is this better?
In fact, maybe standing would be a good
We're
idea.
gonna turn on the video.
That's okay. No, I've been instructed to sit, so I will project a little bit better. Okay.
All right.
You're also welcome to grab a chair and move forward
Yes. Okay.
if you need to. Thank you.
So I'm sorry.
They advise them not to stay.
Is this on?
Yes.
Sure.
Is this better? Okay.
Yes. There
The easy answer is that the one that we have to get, which is we'll both follow the law. Judicial elections are a little bit different than other ones. You may hear from them. Neither one of us can say what we will do or how we will rule on a particular issue. So we can't tell you what we will do. What we will do is follow the law as it is written. As a matter of judicial interpretation, I believe the law means what it says. So I don't get into varying degrees of what they meant to say or anything else. The law simply means what the law says. I will enforce all the laws in the state of Florida as they are passed by the legislature and promulgated by the Supreme Court.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, as Mr. Rivers pointed out, and Mr. Snowden did too, we're sort of limited on what we can say and what we can't say. Can say about judicial philosophy is, when it boils down to it, it may sound a little trite, but it's one of those things. I think it was actually the March Hare said in Alice in Wonderland. Say what you mean what you say, and that type thing is what you do whenever I think you look at when you're interpreting the law. You have to look to see what it says, the context of what it says. There are rules of statutory interpretation, constitutional interpretation, and I think the best way is if you say what you mean, read what the legislature wrote in the law, and that's what it means. Don't try to add more to it. Don't try to distract to it. But that way, anybody who can read it, because if you want, everybody's presumed to know the law. If you open statute books and read the book, a person with common sense ought to be able to know what the law is without having to go to a lawyer or a judge to tell them what it is. And that, I think, is the judicial philosophy everyone should have, because it keeps everybody on the same basis. That's the reason in years past, the county judge didn't need to be a lawyer. They just needed somebody that the people of the community believed would have good sense and stick to what the law said and what the law meant.
Something a little different, and Mr. Evans will start. Why did you decide to go to law school?
That's a very hard question to say. Because it's been a lot of years, but it almost feels like a situation where it was almost like it was a calling. That's what I felt I needed to do. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what the law was. I enjoy arguing, which most lawyers do. But it's the analyzing what the law is, what it means, and it was a way to serve the community. And it's one of those things. Putting bad guys away was something I always wanted to do whenever I first got when I decided to go to law school. It was a situation of people get hurt, people get injured, and somebody ought to be held accountable if they did that, they committed a crime against a person. And that's the reason I went into prosecution. I think that translates well into any case. Is whenever you become a judge, you need to try to treat everybody fair and try to do the right thing in the case as the law guides you and the facts guide you in the case. But the reason I went to law school was like I said, I felt it was more of a calling than any way is the best way I can describe it.
I had a little bit of a different path. I did not go to law school right after I graduated college. My degree is actually in management information systems, and so I spent 4 years after graduating college working in the IT field. So I wrote software for the state and federal government before I realized that I'm not really meant to sit behind a computer all day long. I like to be out talking to people, and as Mr. Evans says, I wanted to make an impactful difference in the community where I live. I wanted to serve as well. I wanted to make sure that everyone's protected. I wanted to make sure the rules were followed and we all could live happy lives as much as we possibly could. That's also why I worked on both sides to see which side I felt I could make a better impact on. So starting with the public defender's office and then trying the state attorney's office and seeing which one of those I felt was a better fit for me. I really enjoy being a prosecutor because I get to be the gatekeeper of what actually goes in the courtroom in the first place. There's no judge there unless, in a criminal sense, unless the state has charged somebody with a crime. I like being in the position where I get to review those charges and see if they are appropriate. First off, can I or should I charge that crime? And then secondly, can I prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? And if I can't, I'm not afraid to dismiss a case, even though it may not be the most popular decision in the world, if the elements are not there and the crime is not there. It's the same thing with a judge. A judge has to make tough decisions. They're not always going to be the most popular ones in the world. They have to make decisions based upon the law and on the evidence. That's what I've done as a prosecutor my entire career. That's why I'd like to continue as a judge right now, serving you well into our future.
This was a submitted question. And I thought it was kind of interesting, it had an interesting angle. Judge Walker has been county judge for 30 years.
32 years.
There is only one county judge in Wakulla. It's based on population. Is it a good or bad for the community to have a single judge hold the seat for that long? And we'll start with Mr.
And it's not, the best way to answer this, it's not like Judge Walker was elected 32 years ago and then that was it. Every 6 years, the people had a chance to have somebody run against her and no attorney did, is what it comes down to. So it's not like this is a lifetime appointment. Every 6 years, we're up for election again. It's a position of public trust, which meant that for the past 32 years, the people of Wakulla County have trusted Judge Walker to do her job as a judge. So that's the best way I can think to answer that question. And even in the legislature are the ones who set out how many judges there are per county. So it's not like either one of us or anybody else can change the number. That's done by statute. And so I think that's the best way to answer that. Okay.
Anything else?
Well, that's an answer that I think pretty much has to be echoed in the sense that if somebody is doing a good job and everybody and the voters think they're doing a good job, then I think they ought to be retained in office. It's a situation where whenever I started, the county judge got, it was every 4 years. Then there was an amendment, I think, made to the Constitution or statute, I forget which, that then extended the term out to 6 years. So there's a review every 6 years. It's done that way simply because it gives a person enough time to get experience, for them to see, and for there not to be an immediate reaction to, an unpopular ruling that may be the legally right ruling, but may be unpopular. So you get more time. So I think somebody staying there is a good thing if they're doing a good job. It can be a horrible thing if they're doing a very poor job. But in Florida, when it comes to county, when it comes to trial bench, the voters have a vote on it, and they get to make the decision in the long run. And the best way for a county judge to lose their seat is to be doing things that people see as wrong. It's like an umpire making the wrong call, a referee making the wrong call, then you yank them out of the game, and that's what the voters get to do. And if it's egregious enough, then there's a system in place called the Judicial Qualification Commission, the Florida Supreme Court. They can remove somebody if it comes down to that, and voluntarily remove them as opposed to voting. But like I said, depending on the person, it can be a very good thing or it can be a very bad thing.
Here's a bit of a softball question, just to try to get some sense of who you are, and we'll start with Mr. Evans this time. What judge or lawyer in history do you admire?
Whenever I was in law school, it was about the time Justice Scalia came on the U.S. Supreme Court bench. And some people love him, some people hate him, but he was a person who believed in calling the balls and strikes, and what the law means. Like they've said, everybody's on the point where even Elena Kagan, who's on the U.S. Supreme Court now, has said everybody's a textualist. That means everybody wants to see what the text says and try to enforce it. So I think it was him because he's also a person who had a good sense of humor. He was a brilliant person. Everybody understood what he said, why he said it, and where he went. You knew why he did what he did. Whether in the end, whether you agreed with it or not, you at least knew why he did what he did, and he could explain it, and he could do a great job doing it. And I think that matters for any judge. If you understand why they did what they did, if you know that, well, okay, I don't like it, but I understand what they did. Just like a referee making a call or an umpire making a call, you may not like the call because your batter got struck out, but you could see, yeah, that was a strike. But that's who I'd say.
I would echo that as well. Most textualists follow two justices. That would be Justice Scalia, as Mr. Evans has mentioned, and also Justice Clarence Thomas. They both stand for textualism in its purest form and mean the law means what it says. I also, though, want to add to that, I do admire, even if not everyone agrees with her opinions necessarily, the relationship between Justice Ginsburg and Justice Scalia. Even though those two justices were diametrically opposed in almost all things, they dissented from each other all the time, no two people on the court were as close as they were as friends. And that to me I think means a lot. That even though they disagree with each other vehemently over what the law should be, they can still eat lunch together and still be colleagues. And so that relationship I admire, as well as the philosophy behind Justice Scalia and Justice Thomas as well.
I think this is the last question. We'll start with Mr. Miller. It's an attempt to get around how would you rule sort of things, but what historical court decision do you believe has had the greatest impact on our society? I mean, you could Marbury versus Madison or whatever. I mean, I'm just throwing out for an example.
I mean, that's one. There are, of course, dozens of examples. Of course, the power of judicial review that comes from that particular decision. There's been a lot over the years, and it's not, even point to something like Miranda, for example, and the way that changed, that in most laws, for example, you are deemed to have knowledge of the law. That judicial opinion says you must be informed of those two particular rights or your confession can't be used against you. So there were various opinions that came out over the years. It's difficult to point to just one in all of the thousands of cases that have come out to interpret and say this one's the one that matters the most to me. I don't know. I really can't pick just one, because I mean, we look at ones that overturned, whether it be segregation, whether that be educational rights, whether that be in DC versus Heller affirming the right to have the right to possess a firearm. I mean, there's no more case more important to the people involved in that case. So it's not so much as what case is important to me, is the people that are going to be before me in having their case, because to them, their case is the most important one. And so I believe we should have a judge that's knowledgeable of the law, but also connected to this community to make the best decisions that affect the individual litigants here in Wakulla County. So I wouldn't say that any particular case is the Supreme Court's most important one. It's whatever person's currently before me with their case. That would be the most important one to me, because it's the most important one to them.
I agree with what Mr. Miller said. For Judge Sennett, the most important case ought to be the one before them deciding at the time. But historically, if you're looking at it, and I think the question was what was one that's most impactful, is I kind of think that Mr. Snowden was right when he threw out Marbury versus Madison for this reason. It is the case that makes us look at the United States Supreme Court and all courts in making big decisions that we're all going to follow, whether we like them or not. You know, one of the decisions, I guess, that it led to that people will disagree to, you know, for time immemorial, is Bush versus Gore. Some people agreed with it, some people disagreed with it. But when it was all said and done, when the Supreme Court spoke, everybody agreed the game was over. And they did that because of Marbury versus Madison, which placed in the U.S. Supreme Court the ability to make those types of balls and strikes. Because when the nation started, nobody was real sure about how the rules go. Because in England, Parliament can overrule a court decision in a lot of situations. And they can change the Constitution there. Here, you know, it's a much different situation. But Marbury Madison stood for judicial review, meaning we look to the courts as the final arbitrator in things to deal with the Constitution and what the law says and what the law means after the legislature has enacted and passed it. So that's the reason I would think that's probably one of the most impactful, if you had to choose one. But there are a multitude that have made big impacts, but they all come from that root. The court makes the decision, and we say we'll follow that.
Okay, and to end, I'll give you a closing if you'd like to close, and we'll start with Mr. Evans. Yes.
I guess in closing, I think experience makes a big difference. And, you know, I'd like to serve as your county judge because I think the experience that I have will function very well in that. And quite frankly, I'm older, I have a whole lot more experience, and in Tallahassee, it's the difference of dealing in cases of very large cases. Like I said, I've handled the death penalty cases, I've also do a lot of handle investigations whenever executive investigations. That means if there are politicians in trouble, that means if there's anything major going on, I deal with it. From the smallest of cases where Mr. Meaner's lawyer's calling to our largest cases, I think experience makes a difference. I've had a huge variety of the type of cases I've had to deal with, decisions I've had to make, and judgments I had to call on, regardless of whether it ended in criminal charges or not bringing criminal charges. I think experience is a big thing, and I believe I have the most experience and the most variety of experience, both in the civil and the criminal, and over 100 jury trials. and I don't know how many non-jury trials, and I don't know how many cases or investigations I've handled over the years. But I think that makes a big difference, and I'd like to use the tools I've learned from that, the experience I've learned from that, to serve as your county judge.
And I believe in experience too, and I'm currently the longest serving chief prosecutor in Wakulla County for longer than anybody can remember. I'm here every single day experiencing what all of you are experiencing in this community. And as I said, the county judge is a very special position in this county because there's only one. We have one county and we have one sheriff. They need to be connected to what's happening in Wakulla County every single day, and that's exactly what I've been doing for y'all. Not just being here, living here, but also making sure that we're incorporating every person we possibly can in our court system to make sure that if people offend and they break laws, they don't come back. They're held accountable, but then importantly, they don't return to us. So I believe my experience and what we do here every single day matters to y'all, because I believe the county judge should be a judge of the people in this county. And secondly, as I said, I've been rooted in our past. My daughter's 7th generation to be here. She's going to grow up, live, hopefully her whole life in Wakulla County. I'm sure she'll want to leave at some point in time, but hopefully she'll come back home one day too. My family and I have chosen to live here. My parents are from, my mom lives from here, my wife's family lives here, they're beekeepers out in Smith Creek. We care very much about what's happening in Wakulla County every single day. And as I said, our county is growing. We're getting, of course, the public's going to be coming in soon. We're going to have more stores coming to that shopping center. Look at all the neighborhoods that are going up off of Aaron Road. I mean, we're growing. And I want us to have a judge that will grow along with this county. Even though I am younger than Mr. Evans, I'm 40. It's not like I just graduated law school yesterday. Okay, I've been a chief prosecutor here for 6 years, been an attorney for over a decade. Okay, or a decade at this point in time. I have this experience as well, and I also want to be able to grow along with this county and serve y'all well into our future. Having stability, consistency, and a judge committed to your future matters, and I believe that's why I should be the best judge for Wakulla County.
I want to thank you both for being here tonight and answering questions, and I appreciate you being here, and we're going